Howdy, y'all. My name is Brunt Hefferton, Mistrunner. Don't worry, the Mistrunner tribe, and today I want to talk to y'all about raid compositions and how to build a raid. If we look over here at tbc.wowhead.com/raid-composition, I'll show you how to build a raid comp that can down just about any raid. Now, one thing that's changed from vanilla WoW to Burning Crusade is you got no world buffs, but the buffs to each other are way stronger than before. So party composition matters a lot more than it used to, and it's a big part of enhancing the power of your raid. Let's just start it off with the core of some tanks. You can have a prot warrior, you can have a bear, and you can have a paladin tank. Let's just try one of each kind and start with that. Now, one of the most desirable classes in the game is the shaman. Shamans drop totems, which are super strong, and they have bloodlust, which boosts the raid DPS by a crap ton. So what a lot of raids will do is they'll put an enhance for the melee group 1, they'll put an enhance for the second group that's physical. Oftentimes the third group is a caster group, so they'll put an Elisham, and then you can have maybe a resto for this, and a resto or an elemental for this. The elemental shaman boosts the caster group with some spell crit, which is great, and the resto shaman has mana tide and earth shield for the tanks. Whenever you're doing the raid, it's good to assign the earth shields or make sure the shamans are being consistent about who they're earth shielding so that they don't push each other's earth shields off and waste mana. What else can we do here? One thing that's really nice is having 3 paladin buffs. Paladin buffs are super strong, but they're very confusing, and people use the add-on called Pally Power to sort that out. Many raids are held up by the difficulty that is setting up paladin buffs, so try to be patient as they sort that stuff out. But let's get a couple other paladins here. Let's just get one of each kind for fun. Let's get a ret paladin, and let's get a holy paladin. Why not? One thing that you could shift with this raid comp, as you don't need to have just one fixed comp, is maybe for your 3 tanks, instead of having a prot warrior, a bear, and a prot paladin, you could have 2 prot paladins and a bear. And that would also get you the 3 paladin buffs, even if you didn't have a holy paladin. This could also work, and you get to the 3 paladin buffs, which is a nice power spike. That means the physical damage can have might, kings, and salve, which helps a bunch, and you can give the tank kings, might, and light, which boosts the holy paladin's healing if you have a holy paladin on them, or blessing of sanctuary, which improves their ability to block and stuff. Let's go back to the warrior example because I'll be honest, I'm biased. I think warrior tank is really fun and cool to have. Alright, let's see what else we can get. What's another good class to have? Hunters are good. It is known by many hunters that marksmanship is bad, so they put in maybe a beastmaster hunter or 2, and then maybe a survival hunter which boosts the physical damage proportionate to their agility level. 3 hunters is pretty normal for a raid. Again, it doesn't need to be fixed at 3, but it's a nice number. What's another class that's really good? Warlocks. You can get a couple warlocks. An affliction warlock is kind of like the survival where it boosts the other ones, but it doesn't perform as well on its own. Beast Mastery hunters deal more damage than survival, but survival buffs the raid more than Beast Mastery does. Destruction does more damage than affliction, but affliction buffs the raid more than destruction does. What's another class that's good? Mages. Arcane is usually what mages go for in this phase. You could have a fire mage. Frost is usually seen as the PvP spec or the boosting spec. So let's just do this. And then what's another really good class to bring? Let's get a priest. Arcane mages are kind of like magic addicts, and shadow priests help them with their problems by giving them magic. Shadow priests give magic to the party that they're in relative to how much damage they're dealing, as long as they have their vampiric stuff up. So usually, if you have one Shadow Priest, you put them here, and if you happen to have two Shadow Priests, you could put the other one here. What's another good class? Boom Chickens. Boom Chickens, with improved Fairy Fire, give the raid 3% hit to physical attacks. That's hunters, rogues, warriors, and so on. So having a balanced druid is good, and typically if you have the choice between putting them here or here, you would put the balanced druid with the warlocks and the the elemental, like this. Now what else could we put in here? You could put a physical in here, say another hunter, or you could put another enhanced shaman, that's fine. You could put a warrior, that's actually a good thing to mix in. A fury warrior is going to be one of the top performing DPS classes in the game, just for raw value, and their battle shout buffs the hunter pets, the enhancement shaman, and the feral, which is good. Or you can go for an arms, and they're going to give plus 4% physical damage to the whole raid with their bleeds. They can get improved thunderclap and help out the tank if needed. They could get improved demo shout too. Arms warriors, kind of like the utility spec, kind of like survival and affliction, where it buffs other people and it doesn't perform as well as the other spec on its own, but it's a big help. This is what we usually do in our guild. And then for the last spot in group 1, you could honestly do a rogue. I know a lot of people say that rogues are bad in Burning Crusade, but they can pump, and they have improved exposed armor, which does increase all the physical damage that you do as a raid. So maybe a rogue. Now, what are you going to do in group 5? This is usually the healer group. What's another good healing class that we don't have so far? Resto Druid. We can add a Restoration Druid. Hots are really good. Whenever stuns happen or silences happen, you can't hardcast, but if you put Hots on before, then the Hots can continue rolling and you have good healing income still, even if people get silenced or they get thrown around in the room or so on. So Resto Druid is a very good class in Burning Crusade. Let's get a Holy Paladin here just for some class representation. And let's also get a Holy Priest. Great. So this is a full raid that I would say is very well balanced and very strong. And honestly pretty min-maxed. What are some things that you could do that maybe aren't quite as min-maxed, but would be a functional raid that could get a bunch of stuff done, and you can prog and you can kill bosses and stuff? You could do something like this. This would still be a functional raid. You would need 9% hit instead of 6% hit for your attacks if you didn't have improved Fairy Fire. Or the Resto Druid can go Dream State, and they have some points in balance to get the improved Fairy Fire and the rest of them in Resto. That's what we've had to do some of the time because our Boom Chicken quit. So that's a thing. We still get content down, it's fine. What's another thing you could do? Let's put the Boom Chicken back for fun. You could also, actually let's just mix it up. You could also do this, and they don't have to life tap anymore. Shadow Priests are pretty strong. They pull their weight and they help people out. You could also do this, if you had a bunch of mages for some reason. The mage benefits from the Eli Shaman and so on, being in the caster group. What's another thing that you could do? Maybe you've got a bunch of melee in your guild. That's just what your friend group ended up being. And you've got an arms warrior. This is still fine. It's still a mostly functional raid. It's going to work. What if you had a second rogue instead of a ret? It's not as good, but you can still get the job done. You've got DPS representation. You lose the nice buffs from the Paladin. If you only have 2 Paladins, then you have to choose between Salve and Might sometimes, or Salve and Kings, which can be a little bit tricky, and it doesn't feel as good, but honestly, you can get stuff down. You can get the bosses. It's fine. But the red is nice. What if you were short a shaman and you didn't have 5? Which one would you remove first? Most of the time, I would say in the healer group is where you would cut a shaman, or you would go without a shaman if you didn't have one. Say you had an extra priest. You could go for a discipline priest here. This group is not as dependent on bloodlust. Bloodlust doesn't really help a prot paladin as much. It doesn't really help the healers that much compared to DPS. So if you only had 4 shaman, I would cut the shaman from the healer group and do something like this. What's another switch you could do? Maybe you don't have 2 enhance, but you had 2 shadow priests. You could put a resto druid here, a resto shaman, and they can still put totems. For this group, you would want to do Wind Fury totem for these. And if they're really good at their class, they know how to totem twist, and they can twist Wind Fury and Grace of Air to help out the bear, the hunter, and it does help the warriors a bit. What's another thing you could do? Oops. Which classes have we not represented here? We've got most of them in. Fire mages are fine. It does a little bit less damage than arcane, but it's also less mana dependent. So if you're a guild that doesn't have a shadow priest for some reason, it might make more sense to have fire mages. I don't know too much mage stuff, so don't read too much into that. Mages, go check your own shit, okay? That's great. Maybe you've got this. This would still be fine. It's not as pretty. It's not as min-maxed, but you can get the job done. You've got the shaman support. You've got the range groups. You've got some ranged here. You've got some melee here. What if you were just really short on ranged? You didn't have that many of them. Well, you can do with more melee. It's not as pretty, and the mechanics are a little bit tougher some of the time. But if you, for some reason, had a crap ton of physical and a bunch of melee, you could have 2 mostly melee groups and still get the job done. This is still doable. It's not as pretty, but it's doable. So what are the big take-homes from this in terms of composition? You should try to get 4 to 5 shaman if you can. That's good. You want to get 3 tanks. 1 of each kind is good. Going without a prot paladin is usually a no bueno for the big AoE packs like in Hyjal. So this is a very crucial spot. This is a pretty crucial one for tanking Illidan. You can have a prot paladin tank Illidan. The enrage can be kind of gnarly without shield wall, but it has been done. Paladins can do it. Bears are very strong. They have really good threat. And one of the nice things about a feral that a prot paladin can't do is if the feral is not assigned a tank, they can DPS pretty darn good as cat, even with the same spec. So they're very flexible in that sense of if you have a 2 tank fight, you can just have the prot warrior and the prot paladin handle it, and the feral can DPS. Or you can have the feral tank it, the prot is helping to tank, and you can have the prot warrior put on DPS gear, go berserker stance, and they can pull a good bit of DPS as well. So the take home from all this is whenever you're building a roster, you want to think about party synergy. So you have people buffing each other in a nice way. You want to make sure you have coverage of the really powerful raid buffs if you can, like improved fairy fire or the boomkin crit aura that they have. The 3 paladin buffs, the bloodlust and the totems, the wind fury for your melee, the grace of air for your ranged if you can have it, mana tide where you can put it down, very nice in the mage group. Shadow priest should be proud to help the mages if you have shadow priest. Affliction warlock can buff the other warlocks, and so on. Anyways, just figured that maybe some of y'all were thinking about hosting a run or something, but didn't know really how to go about it, and this might be helpful to you. If you have any other thoughts or opinions on how to build a raid roster, feel free to share in the comments. Or if you run with a guild that has kind of a unique composition, feel free to share that too. That's one of the cool things about this game, is you can approach it from a lot of different ways and still get things done if you execute it. From me, Brunt half-ton Mistrunner, Tolmore that Mistrunner tribe. Stay safe out there. Ancestors watch over you. And best of luck in y'all's raids. I'll see y'all on the next one.